Hi, and welcome to 430 CTZ. So excited to tell you about the new happenings in life here in America, of
America.
the world. Actually, let's just say the world. I'm not too hung up on America right now.
Yeah, we can do the world. Yeah, I think I'm definitely resonate more with the world.
Citizens of the world.
Perfect. It's been a
Got
while.
my co-host Peter Williams here, and
What's up?
hope you all you fine ladies and gentlemen are tuning into our podcast. We like to talk about science and spirituality, and just whatever soapbox I want to stand on, and you have to listen to me. Peter, what's going on with you?
I've been good. just trying to think what has been going on with me. I don't know. I should probably just go into what I wanted to talk about with what has been going on with me, because I had a really interesting experience last week that relates to science in particular, which is I was at SC15, which stands for Supercomputer 2015, in the Austin Convention Center last week. And I was there because I was working with one of my clients that I worked on a video for. Their name is Bitfusion, and they're actually a company that my buddy Sagar, both our buddy Sagar, works for. And basically, they do something actually really interesting, which is why they're at the Supercomputer conference. But they work with the SuperCloud. And Duncan, have you ever heard of the SuperCloud? Before I mentioned it earlier.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
only just the regular cloud.
Just the regular cloud. Yeah. Well, now we're going really big clouds, but yeah. So I think this cloud is just going to be like something just beyond what we could ever imagine. And I think for me, it starts to kind of blur the reality of what is real and what isn't. And I say that because, so this company, Bitfusion, they essentially allow you to use or operate from really advanced at really advanced computing levels, utilizing hardware that is not very advanced whatsoever. And you can get that advanced technology by connecting via this computing power via the cloud. So, for instance, they actually showed me an example of this. They had this MacBook that was like pretty old, nothing special, and I don't even believe it had any like GPUs, so any specific graphic cards on it. And what they were doing is they were doing a demonstration of rendering a 3D, essentially a 3D render of, it was just like a one-frame 3D render of like a car. And typically this render on that computer in particular, without a graphics card, took about 45 minutes to do. And what they were able to do is hook it up via the cloud to another computer that had two of these particular GPUs that were like high-end GPUs. And so no hardware attached to it at all, just connecting it via the cloud, and it was able to render that particular image in 5 minutes compared to 45 minutes, which is like really insane to me. And so it's kind of cool how this works. So you can essentially, so this is very applicable to the supercomputer world, as like a lot of people who are interested in using supercomputers are using very a dense amount of algorithms. A lot of it's working with like machine learning, or trying to think of other examples. Anything that requires like very like an intense amount of data. And obviously supercomputers they're able to like go through like an intense amount of information about 10,000 times, up to 10,000 times faster than like your normal computer, which is kind of cool. So it's a pretty cool thing. So that was like I was really kind of blown away that that's like possible. And if that's possible, if we can connect to, just imagine like, just being on your tablet and being able to have like the power of a supercomputer, be able to connect from your tablet to a supercomputer and be able to essentially do whatever you want on that, just the tablet alone. and not having to own the hardware whatsoever, you know?
That's definitely interesting, and what it's making me think of is, so like, we've kind of gone around full circle. So like back in the day, the model of computing was, in the 50s or 60s, like there was one big mainframe computer, and that would kind of take up the whole room or the whole building, just depending on how powerful it was. And you would you'd either have to wait in line, or you would go to some kind of terminal that accessed the mainframe. So there was no concept of like a desktop or a laptop. It was all just this big supercomputer that you got access to at these terminals. So I think it's interesting that now, even though our computers are so powerful, that we're starting to see the benefits of even more powerful computing wherever you are. So
right. And it's just, I think it's just a cool thing how just being able to have access to power from anywhere you are. It's like it's like a holographic type of perspective of doing things, being able to like operate from somewhere at any angle, anyone at any angle. It doesn't matter what you have, but you can connect. As long as you can connect it, you have that technology to connect to it, then you can do it. I don't know. That just kind of fascinates me, that concept. But it's pretty cool. But also, when I was at the supercomputer conference, they had some other interesting things. Like they had this big wall. So Intel had created this huge wall, and basically on it was it was like an audio visualizer in a sense. It was the visualizer was kind of like this spiral, and you could see it was like kind of a spiral where you could drag these little molecules that had different beats and sounds to it, and you can drag them and put them onto the spiral, and then they would like start moving down the spiral. And the spiral kind of represented the entire length of your song. So basically, you could add beats to this particular song, and you had headphones on, so you could kind of listen and see what was going on. But you're just kind of moving them with your hands. And then once you're done with that, they brought you over to the side, and they had you put on some Oculus Rift goggles, as well as some headphones. And so you were in this 3D space then, where you were now visualizing the audio, the basically the beats that you had just made, and watching them again. You see the spiral, but now you see the spiral in 3D, and so you can look all in every direction and see the beats that you created in real time moving down this spiral. It was really interesting thing. It's kind of something you have to be there to experience, but it will definitely be it'll be cool. It's cool how virtual reality and music, how music is going to be impacted by virtual reality, and these new kind of I guess this whole new world of technology which is coming forth. We've barely even you've barely even touched the surface of what virtual reality could be, but it's kind of I think it's pretty awesome. It's going to be interesting.
You mentioned machine learning as one potential application of the supercloud, and so that kind of segs nicely into one of my topics, which is Google has recently open sourced their artificial intelligence engine, which is exciting to me and exciting to a lot of people. So Google usually will not. I mean, it's surprising, I think, because a lot of the times on such a big project, Google will kind of keep that to themselves and not open source it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it's done traditionally. And so this is kind of a big move, a big step in the direction of more freedom, more open source stuff for the AI community. And I think Google is betting on this because, any this could really accelerate the pace of artificial intelligence development. And so I think Google kind of sees this as like anything that people are going to develop as far as advancing the state of the art is going to be returned back to Google and just make them more powerful. Because
right.
they still retain an advantage. So one of the things that Google pioneered was so the notion of like instead of building one really powerful computer, what they would do is they would take a lot of less expensive machines and link them together sequentially, and then they wrote their software to be able to operate over thousands of computers at one time, which is a lot more efficient than investing in one really powerful computer that's state of the art. They can buy a bunch of older stuff and reap the benefits of it being connected. And so another thing that's interesting to me about that is there's starting to be like more, or there are more parallels between like how our brain works and how computers work, and this is just a really interesting topic to me. And so you were mentioning like so the graphics rendering on computers is one thing that typically takes a long time. And so our computers have two different kinds of architectures that they use. There's the CPU, which works sequentially, logically in sequence at one operation at a time. And that's very efficient for some types of computation. But then when computers started to be used to like play video games and different kind of applications that were like graphically intensive, this other type of architecture was developed, and that's the GPU, which is the graphical processing. And the difference between graphical processing is that it's all in parallel. So there's lots of different threads that are being run and computed on at the same time. So there are two different types of machines that are good for different stuff. But the parallel to the brain is like we have two hemispheres of our brain. One could be compared to the CPU, the left side of the brain that's like logical, sequential, analytical, and then the right side of the brain, which is parallel, everything at once kind of thinking. So
right.
I just thought that was interesting.
No, absolutely. I also find it very fascinating. The concept of computers, just how computers go about like storing their memory, it kind of like it really does work in a very similar way. Just like the ability to access the cloud, and sometimes I feel like us accessing the cloud is like us being inspired, for no particular reason, or just getting this hit of like inspiration that comes out of nowhere. That's kind of like us like connecting to the cloud, and maybe the cloud is like God or the universe or whatever you want to call that, but like maybe that's us connecting to the cloud, doing a lot of I've done a lot of work with like helping with doing healing in terms of like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And so like I've definitely seen like a very you have like this a very similar relationship. Like our reptilian brain, our left brain is the thing that like it's extremely rigid and structured, and it's a thing that keeps us very, very repetitious in a sense, and it's very hard to break out of that repetition. And that's why that's where the right brain is for, is to help us break out of, kind of like see things and try things in different ways. And the GPU kind of like, it just like kind of adds color to that and enhances things and allows you to kind of, it's like the CPU allows you to, it's like, whoa, you can create like some really awesome functionality, and like, but like functionality like becomes dry after a while, and like if it wasn't for like the graphical aspect of things, which is completely creative and really not functional at all, we wouldn't have some like. It's just like when those two come together, then you have like a really awesome video game or a really cool like social network or whatever, whatever it may be. It just brings it all together. It's pretty awesome. But yeah, that is very fascinating how that all works. But it's cool though. I actually saw in relationship to what you said with the AI aspect of things. Have you ever seen the movie Ex Machina?
It was a recent one with AI.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay, cool. There's another one that is like almost exactly the same, almost exactly the same premise. Actually, pretty much exactly the same premise. This young, young guy like gets funded like billions of dollars because he's like a genius and he's like he's advancing AI technology like on his own, out in the wilderness by himself, and someone comes to like check out the place, a reporter comes to check out the place. Same premise, but it has the craziest twist ever, and I was completely not expecting it at all. Like really, really awesome movie, like, or at least awesome. Well, it is a very well made movie, especially when you see the whole thing. But Uncanny, so it's called Uncanny, and I would highly recommend checking that one out. I think it's a 2015, so it came out this year too. But I was just so surprised. I was like, how can they make a movie that's like literally exactly the same as this other one, but like the whole twist makes it all like, oh, okay, I can see why they could do that now. but yeah, it's interesting. Were you gonna say something, or are you just breathing?
No, I was thinking about like similar movies. I guess they recently came out with another Steve Jobs movie pretty soon after.
Oh yeah. I was like not at all interested in watching another Steve Jobs movie, but like, did you see that at all?
No.
Yeah. I was like, I feel like one's good, like, but. I mean, maybe if I knew the guy, I would have watched it.
I think they're just trying to capitalize on
right? People dying.
Most recent death.
Yeah. Like or maybe one guy just got to it first, and he had it like already, like, because that came out like literally right after his death. Like or at least it seemed pretty quick that the movie came out, but maybe it was, or maybe it was the book that came out really fast.
They probably had it all filmed and ready to go, and they were just waiting until like he was on his deathbed.
Like, okay, and then, this is it, guys. It looks like the last week. Oh god, it's terrible. Man, yeah. Imagine being famous. People wait for you to die so they can write books and make movies after you.
So I have some light, fun topics, and I have some heavy, deep topics. Which do you want to hear?
Whoa. Okay. Well, since we're talking about death, I feel like the natural progression would be to go to the darkness, and maybe we'll like end with the light.
End with the okay. That's kind of I feel like that's some kind of strategy, like
exit strategy. Yeah.
All right. It's like the news will show you like pictures of like some war somewhere, and then it'll like switch to a story about like a pet getting rescued.
Yeah. And now puppies. Yeah.
It's how they hook you in on the emotional roller coaster.
I guess so.
Anyways, so I talked a little bit about this at one point, but did you hear about cryotherapy?
Yes, that's the skin. Is that like a freezing something? Freezing?
Yeah, it is.
I know this.
So what it is they immerse. You get immersed in this tank of probably liquid nitrogen, and it quickly cools you down to this very low temperature, and it's just for a brief period of time, probably 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever, and it's kind of like a real fad, kind of fringe health thing right now, and people will say there's lots of benefits like Tony Robbins, whenever he, walks off stage of one of his seminars, he goes in the cryo chamber for 2 minutes, and it's supposed to reverse aging and inflammation and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, it's crazy health benefits that may or may not be.
Wait, so you jump in this chamber for about 2 minutes. It freezes. Like how does it freeze you exactly? So how do you not get frostbite or anything like that? Are you wearing a protective suit or something like that? Or I wonder.
So, I mean, it's I don't think anything is actually touching you. I think it's just you're in this chamber, and it fills up with nitrogen gas that they use to chill the air. So it's just the air that's getting chilled, but
interesting.
It's very, very cold, and so anyways, this is a fad. I've seen one of these places on my way to work, and I've wondered about it. But so a woman actually died in a tank at a Nevada cryotherapy center.
Oh God, that sounds terrible.
And how this happened was she actually worked at the center, and she was really enthusiastic about it, thought it was great, and so she would what she would do is she would go, when the store was closing down, I guess she had access to these tanks, and she would go and do her workout across the street and then come back and get in the tank. And so she got in and nobody was there. And they found her the next morning frozen solid.
No.
Just a block of ice.
Oh my God, what happened? Do you know?
I guess so. It sounds like something went wrong in their system. There's always supposed to be someone there,
right,
when this is happening. And I guess she just typed in 3 minutes, went in, and then they're not sure what exactly happened, but this is growing. This bringing a lot of scrutiny to the cryotherapy treatments.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with you fall asleep in a tanning bed, or I don't know, the same thing's gonna happen. You're gonna burn up. I mean, yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. Yeah, that's a bummer, though. That's a bummer.
That's kind of the point where trying to be healthy, just went too far.
Yeah, right.
She works out, so she's sore from her workout, gets in this tank and freezes to death. So. First world problems.
Yeah, definitely a first world problem right there. Dang, that is crazy. Speaking of health, and this is definitely I'm curious if this is also something that's natural. I guess I don't know if cryotherapy is really natural. I guess you could kind of, because there's gases that are natural, but this is a substance that is usually natural, that you can get in a psychedelic form. There's actually these Himalayan. Why am I saying? Himalayan. That's what I was. Okay, Himalayan bees. There's these Himalayan bees. They are, I think they're just called Himalayan bees. But they produce this particular honey that, when ingested in very small doses, actually can help a lot with diabetes and poor sexual performance, as well as hypertension. So it's a really very actually therapeutic type of honey, but also when you take it in a larger dose, it makes you trip out a little bit. It has a hallucinogenic effect to it, which is really interesting. And it's actually, so it's a very expensive type of honey, and it's widely sought after. However, it can only be it's only found on the edges of cliffs and such. So the natives there will go to great lengths. I guess they have I haven't seen the the documentary, but there's a whole documentary about the great lengths that these people go to actually collect this honey because it's so valuable. But the thing I found really interesting about this honey is that I guess King Mithridates, I think that's how you say it. King Mithridates' army back in 67 BC actually used this honey, which they called the mad honey, as like a type of natural chemical warfare. And what they would do is, so they were like, so basically the Romans were invading them, so they set up like just like a mile out of where their camp was, where they knew the Romans were coming. They set up like basically all this honey, like they kind of like lined it up all over the place. And so when the Romans got there, they started just like naturally eating the honey because obviously it's like honey and you're going to eat it and it tastes good. And so basically they would wait till the Romans ate the honey. The Romans would be tripping out of their mind, and then they would go attack them. And so that's how they won battles, is using this honey as a specific as a tool for warfare, which is kind of interesting. But
does it say what the psychedelic is?
I think it doesn't say specifically. It's from the rhododendron flowers, which tend to have potent properties themselves. So that's essentially why they are like that. Let's see if there's anything else about the actual. I don't. It doesn't say anything about the actual thing, but the each nest houses about like 60 kilograms of honey within them, and it's just like a lot of honey. So
that is a lot of honey.
So you could trip for months. Which is kind of interesting, but yeah, it's fun stuff.
So okay, this is another heavy topic, but so The Onion published an article in 2003 that basically predicts the rise of the Islamic State. So anyone who's been following the media even remotely.
Wait, you're saying The Onion, like the
satirical newspaper?
Satirical newspaper. Okay.
Yes. So anyone who's remotely not living in a cave in the Himalayas collecting rhododendron bee honey would probably know that the Islamic State is getting a lot of attention after their recent attacks and whatnot. But this article, this is from 2003, and this is in The Onion, which is a satirical newspaper, so it's not supposed to be, it's not supposed to be real. But so anyways, and this was about the Iraq War. So they said, the war will destabilize the entire Mideast region and set off a global shockwave of anti-Americanism versus no, it won't. So this is set up as an opinion. You've got two people debating. So so the first guy says, George Bush may think the war against Iraq is the solution to our problems, but the reality is it will only serve to create more. And so it's saying, it's going to fan the flames of American hatred, will not end the threat of weapons of mass destruction, will not lay the groundwork for flourishing of democracy through the Mideast, but will harden the resolve of Arab states to drive out Western influences. So, and then he says, if you thought Osama bin Laden was bad, just wait until the countless children who become orphaned by U.S. bombs in the coming weeks are all grown up. Do you think they will forget what country dropped the bombs that killed their parents? In 10 or 15 years, we will look back fondly at the days when there were only a few thousand Middle Easterners dedicated to destroying the U.S. and willing to die for the fundamentalist cause. So, and then on the other side of the debate was, no, it won't. So the other guy says, no, it won't. It just won't happen. None of that will happen. You're getting worked up over nothing. Everything's going to be fine. it's just okay. Relax, you're really overreacting. A war against Iraq is not only morally wrong, it will be an unmitigated disaster. Sorry, no, I disagree. To take over a country and impose one's own system of government without regard for the people of that country is the very antithesis of democracy. You are completely wrong. Trust me, it's all going to work out perfect. Nothing bad is going to happen. It's all under control. So,
interesting.
Unfortunately, The Onion hits too close to home again. But
has this happened before?
Well, I feel like typically their articles will be satirical but very accurate at the same time. So they don't typically make predictions.
That's usually the best way to tell the truth, is to make people laugh. At least that's what someone said. But that is interesting. Wow, it's pretty crazy how that is the case in different ways. But I'm sure it's not going to happen, though. It won't happen. Nothing else is going to happen with that.
I'm sure taking down the largest state in the Middle East won't destabilize the entire region and cause a power vacuum into which more terrorism will spring forth.
We'll see, man. Dang. Speaking of vacuums, I actually found this really interesting article.
So no further analysis on that one.
I guess see, I feel like it's like a really hot, that's definitely a really hot topic, which I don't know. I just don't know. It's like it's hard to know what to feel about it. At the moment, it's like, I don't know. It's first of all, it's hard to get information these days. I feel like I'm not gonna look at the news for information because I just don't trust. Well, there's particular sources I really just don't trust. Like, I'm seeing it on a video, and they could be showing me anything in any different way. There's many different perspectives, and I don't know, and there's a lot of different things that people said about Paris and this and that, and what went down, how it went down, why it went down, and it's kind of always going to be. I think it's always going to be that way with any big scenario. It's just hard to decipher,
Well, I mean, I think I think sometimes it's okay to have an opinion on hot topics, and I guess people might. I don't know if people will be. I mean, probably no one's going to listen to this, but if they do, some people might get angry. And basically, what I'm saying is that the U.S., played a role, in the U.S. is partly responsible for what happened in Paris because we basically, destabilized the Middle East with our war in 2003, and now we're kind of reaping the bitter fruits of our actions.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely see that. I mean, in my eyes, it's just like it always comes full circle. There's always it's like your actions have an impact and they come back to you, eventually. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I
guess it's kind of like in some ways it's a question of like moral absolutism versus moral relativism. So like, I would like to be a person that says war is always wrong. Like war is just wrong. And we can be absolute about that. But at the same time, you can probably find, well, you might be able to. I mean, this is open to debate. Are there situations where, you would morally be impelled to fight another country? And so, I mean, obviously self-defense, it would be a good argument. But I can't see too many justifications for attacking a country that hasn't done anything to you.
I think with war, it always comes down to fear, and it's just like so often where you see this big, you see that a lot of countries, in order to convince their citizens to go to war, that it's the right idea to go to war, is by showing them things that aren't necessarily even true. I wish I had some good examples, but I know like a lot of what's the word?
Propaganda.
Thank you. Propaganda classes. I mean, like, I know Monica, for instance, was talking about she learned all this different propaganda that different countries use, and basically it's you have to build up a certain amount of fear in order to take an action that is against kind of like that natural flow. Like, I mean, it's I
feel like prior to World War II, America had always been very isolationist. It was always our policy that we didn't want to get involved in other wars, and we were really just dragged into World War II by what was going on. So, I mean, if you were just completely, say you were somebody that had completely anti-war, war is always wrong, I don't want to participate in violence. So a question that comes up was, would it have been better to have not fought that war and just waited it out and allowed, a crazy dictator to conquer more and more of the world as you just kind of sit by and watch?
Right. Yeah, and
to me, that's the argument.
Right, I get that. I definitely understand that, and it's yeah.
It's a cycle. It's cycles of violence, and violence. A lot of the times will just bring more violence.
Exactly.
You can't really fight fire with fire.
And that's how I see it too. I see like, when we react, when we're reactive in nature, it really all it does is it perpetuates something. It's like, oh, I'm reacting to these terrorists because they bombed us, so we're gonna bomb them. And now I just like killed a bunch of civilians who didn't have anything to do with it at all, and now they're mad, and they want to take revenge on that, and so that's coming at a whole different angle, and it's like, and the cycle repeats itself. There is no way to stop the cycle except by doing the opposite of that, and that's where it's just like, man, like I think that's why like a lot of these like Gandhi just preached nonviolence, because like, if you are nonviolent, there's a good chance you're gonna die. I mean, that's just it. You're probably gonna die. But what you're also gonna do is you're not going to repeat, or you're not adding to the fire, and that fire will die down. It will go away, But and that's where it's like for instance, Jesus Christ is an example of that. He didn't like fight back. He just allowed something terrible to happen to him. And and the story of that is that something great came out of that. Something that was very peaceful came out of that. But like that's just whether it's a true story or not a true story. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like I just like that concept right there. Right. And I think that's the only way you can kind of like, because I completely understand that. That's like, well, if we let the Germans go on forever, the Nazis go on forever, they might. Right today they might have complete control over, complete dominance over the world, and what would that be like? Well, I don't know what that would be like,
I mean, I feel like some there's maybe certain people that are saying like, why can't we just bomb the fuck out of ISIS right now? Why can't we just carpet bomb them and obliterate them, from the face of the earth? Well, there's several reasons why that wouldn't work, and besides those reasons, bombing them is really what they want us to do.
Right.
Because it further radicalizes.
Exactly. It adds fuel to their fire.
It adds fuel to their fire.
Adds to their army, too. that, you know, like I heard there's an incredible amount of people on social media, you know, like that promote ISIS, and like apparently oh yeah, did you see that video? I guess like Anonymous released a video right after the Paris attacks, and basically they were saying like, hey, you know, we're gonna take you down, ISIS. We're gonna launch like the greatest like cyber warfare on you. And you know, when you're thinking, like immediately I was like, cyber warfare, like they have guns and they're, you know, it's like that doesn't really help. But apparently a large like one of the main reasons why they've grown so quickly is because they have a large social media presence. They've been taking down. So apparently these days taking down Twitter accounts is like equal somewhat to like shooting someone. I don't know. It's interesting, but so. Yeah, no, but that's definitely an interesting point. Yeah, it's like, oh, just blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, like that's it's a very like thoughtless. I mean, that's just like a very like careless attitude. You know, what about all the people that like have again the civilians that like have nothing to do with ISIS and like are just living their lives? They just get bombed too. That's just how it is. You know. I don't know. I always like to look at it like if I was in the similar situation, would I want that to happen to me? And yeah, it's tough situation.
I mean, I feel like we're kind of at a place in global politics, or like in the evolution of global consciousness, where it's like most people are probably still caught up in like thinking like I'm an American, or I'm a, you know, I'm British, or I'm German, or whatever.
Right.
Or I'm a Muslim. And so that produces this certain kind of regional consciousness.
Yeah. Exactly.
But the fact is that, you know, we're all just people, we're all human beings, and there's like these invisible lines that we draw don't really mean anything besides the meaning that we attribute to them.
Exactly.
So, you know, you've got, I think there's a small number and a growing number of people who think as citizens of Earth and are like on this level of like, okay, yeah, it doesn't make sense to, you know, shit where you eat and destroy the Earth and, you know, attack other people just because they have different ideologies from you.
Right.
But it's like we're not there yet. And until everybody is operating on that level, then, you know, it's how do you like scaffold up the consciousness of the world?
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why it's very it's difficult for me to like want to participate in politics and want to like, you know, like a lot of my I guess I would say like a lot of my opinions are like based on a world that like isn't quite there yet. Like for instance, it's just like the Syrian thing, you know, the Syrian refugee thing, huge issue, you know, it's kind of just like if we saw each other all as humans, like it would just be like that would never be something, because you wouldn't ever like if you had like two brothers and you said like one brother can come in your house but the other brother has to stay outside because he doesn't live in your hometown, you know, like, I mean, you would never do that. He's your brother. Like, you let him in too, even if you don't really like him that much, you're still going to let him in, you know, you're not going to make him freeze or like be, you know, but, yeah, in that instance, we use labels we label people, and we see, or they have a different color, or look differently, or they speak differently, or this or that, you know. That's gives us these reasons, or it gives us these excuses to see people as something that's different from us. But what's cool, and one thing I'm grateful for technology, and I think one of the reasons why technology and spirituality will go well together in some aspect, is that it's breaking down those barriers. Where, like, for instance, we were just talking about that Skype translator where you can talk to someone from China, you know. You don't have to know any Chinese at all, but you can have a conversation with them and kind of understand each other through that translator. And that alone would just be like, that would be a tremendous thing. Oh, I can talk to people that I wasn't able to talk to before and actually get to know them and relate to them and have a similar understanding, you know. And that's where we get lost, is we don't understand each other. And it's because we aren't around each other to do that. We don't have enough experience.
That's kind of the double-edged sword of technology. Is like as we've gotten more advanced, we get like more isolated, but we can like talk to each other with our thumbs.
Right.
So
I mean, yeah, there's always going to be that like shallow level type, aspect. I think there's in the depth of the waters, you can go to the shallow end or you can go to the deep end. So it's a choice, I think, but there's always going to be there. But so it's pretty interesting.
Let's talk about something a little more lighthearted now.
Yeah, can do that.
This is pretty exciting. Dogs can watch TV now.
Yes, finally. No, man, I've been wanting that for a long time. I'm so glad it's here. How do we do that?
So in the old days, you had your old school TV monitors. They were big and heavy and clunky, and the refresh rate was really slow on them. And so dogs' eyes are a little different than ours. They actually see things faster. And so to a TV, a dog would just be like looking at a strobe light. But now with our HD TVs, you got the faster refresh rate, and so dogs, they can actually make sense to their eyes now.
Wow.
And so dogs can watch TV.
So
yeah,
is this were they able to do like some type of experiment, or is it just like specifically theoretically based?
Well, what this article is saying that we need about 16 to 20 images a second to perceive what we see as a continuous film. So if it's less than that, it starts to look choppy.
Gotcha.
And dogs need about 70 images per second.
Huh. Interesting.
So I guess it's just a physiological difference.
Wow. That's really interesting. Wow. That's kind of crazy.
There's limited research on dog TV. It says no research has been made regarding differences in breeds or as regards to how many images per second they need.
Interesting. Huh.
Some dogs are interested in TV while others couldn't care less.
It's good to know. Dogs these days, telling you, they're going to be living the high life soon. Speaking of looking at things, unless you had something else to share with that story.
No, that was it for the dogs.
So I found an interesting article regarding a breakthrough. I guess I would definitely call it a breakthrough in quantum physics, in being able to prove that there is a particular effect occurring when you observe an electron, when you observe a quantum system. So basically, there's been a couple experiments done, and one of the famous experiments is the double slit experiment, where and actually I want to show a quick video of this. Basically, what scientists did is they have this wall, and they have like a hole. It's like I would say like a 2x6, or maybe like let's say like a 1 by 7 foot hole in this wall. So it's kind of like a rectangular little slit in the wall, and they would, so just one slit in the wall, and they would shoot electrons using this like machine. They would shoot electrons through the slit in the wall, and the electrons would hit the back of this wall. And basically they expected that the electrons would all line up relatively in this rectangular shape, because that's what they were going through. Then they created two strips. They put up a new wall with two strips this time next to each other, so two rectangles right next to each other, and shot the electrons through again. And while they were observing this happening, they saw what they expected to see, which is two rectangular shapes that that showed up on the back of this wall. And I'll show you examples of this in a second. You've probably seen this before, but But when they weren't looking, something very different occurred with the electrons. And let me, so I'm just kind of like showing you this before I show you the actual story, just so that people have a reference. But let me just show like this 30-second video real quick. So you probably can't hear this, so I'm just going to so basically, so they decided to observe. Can you see this? Okay, so they decided to observe what's happening, and the electrons going through this double. So there's two slits here. They're observing it, and it goes through just as you would expect it to go through. Now, this is what happened when they weren't observing it, like this kind of pattern. And this is the pattern that would occur if a wave was moving through those slits. It would create this like kind of wave-like pattern. And so essentially, they were like, "Why is this happening when we're not looking at it? They act like this. These electrons act like waves, and when we are looking at it, they act like just like two slits, just how we would expect them to see." So there's this. So that's kind of like what has brought out the observer effect in terms of quantum physics. And apparently at
there's some cool looking scientists.
Yeah, these are some pretty cool guys, and they designed this really interesting system, which basically what it does is it allows them to basically control a quantum particle system where they basically free. So they have this like tube where they freeze they get the temperature to be very extremely low and just above absolute zero, which is like 0.0000001 degrees. So basically you have this very like almost zero. The temperature is almost exactly zero, which is what allows for this very malleable state with these electrons. And what's really interesting, they created this experiment where they could essentially adjust the amount of observation that was occurring. So basically what they had is this microscope that would be essentially illuminating these electrons or these atoms with a laser. And when they turn so basically when they had this like laser microscope off, the electrons would move about a ton. There'd be movement in all these different directions, and that's what they were able to kind of sense. And then when this thing was on, the electrons would not move around at all, and they called them like they were in this like frozen state where they just weren't moving whatsoever. And they said they were able to. They said they had this thing called. They have this word that they developed. It's like classical. I think they have it on here. It's called like classical. Let's see, I have it. It's here. Classical. It was. Oh yeah. So they came up with this term called emergent classicality, which essentially states that quantum effects fade and atoms begin to behave as expected under class. Basically it's like they were able to tune their observational effect to the point where they went from a quantum state to a more of a classical state, or what you would expect for these electrons to move and behave under classical physics. So basically, they were able to observe, without observing, how quantum systems operate either as waves in one state and as particles in another. They operate as particles when we're not looking at them, or when we're looking at them, and they operate as waves of potential. When a wave, it's like there's many different there's like, you think of a wave, like you think of like something like long, or like, you see a tide coming in, so it's just like a long line of tide, and that those particles can be on any point of that tide, but a particle is just one little thing. So essentially, when we observe things, we create that point of or that point of focus, which is what creates our reality, and that's kind of we're starting to be able to very control that and prove that through science, which is like really interesting. That's going to bring out a whole lot of different things.
So one thing that I would like to add that I felt was a bit misleading in the video, but still makes sense if you know the background of it. So in the video they had like this little eyeball that was kind of looking at the.
Yeah, I can bring that back up. Yeah, that was the observation. That was the scientist observing.
So did you see this movie? What the bleep do we know? Have you seen it? Heard of it?
I have. I've seen that.
Okay, and so I liked kind of the beginning of it, and then it kind of lost me about halfway through. But
it gets kind of trippy. Yeah, it definitely gets different.
it's difficult to quantum physics. If we extrapolate it too far, we can kind of get out in the ether in terms of speculation.
Easily, yeah.
But the thing I wanted to add was, so in the video they show like a little eyeball that's looking at the electrons as they go by, and so that kind of makes you think that it's like just looking at it, But a more technical definition is like it's a system, and then the act of observation necessarily means that you have to perturb the system. So for us to see something, there has to be light.
Right, exactly.
And whether we're measuring it with electrons or protons or whatever, there has to be some kind of intervention. So when the system is in this black box and there's nothing interfering from it outside, it'll behave in a certain way. But when you break the closedness of the system and you perturb it with light molecules for you to observe it, then that changes it. So it's not necessarily that there has to be a conscious person there to see it, but it's perturbed by actually tiny particles.
Gotcha. Right.
And I feel like that was where the movie kind of went awry for me. It's it was saying it's not. There's something about humans observing it, but it's really just about the physics of it, from what I understand.
So the light specifically, so you're saying that the light, it's the light specifically that is causing this change to happen, or when you add the light in, suddenly they're acting differently. It's specifically the light.
No, well, it's not just light. It's more general than that. It's saying that the act of measuring something, the act of observation, will change it, because to measure something essentially means to poke it, and when you poke it, that disturbs the whole system.
Gotcha.
Because you're becoming an outside influence.
Definitely. I think that, and so I think the reason why it gets, I guess so you could take it a lot of different ways theoretically, is because the fact that we label and measure so much of our reality that, it comes that question that you ask yourself: what if I stopped measuring my reality so much? And what if I just stopped measuring things? What if I, for instance, I was just watching this video today of David Wolf, who's he's a promoter of this raw eating raw diet lifestyle, and he was just talking about how he had this crazy toothache, and he went to all these dentists and doctors that were telling him these specific things and telling him what to do, and measuring and giving him this specific factual information about it, and how he wasn't having nothing was helping at all, until he just stopped. He got this kind of intuitive feeling to just stop doing anything about it. Just stop it. He just stopped it and just really just stopped. Kind of he chose to do nothing. And by doing nothing, he was able to find definite relief. He was able to notice that his body was able to kind of start taking care of itself, which actually even led to a more kind of even a more scientific approach, as like when he stopped doing it, he started to feel better. And then it led to actually him finding this other kind of stem cell sort of, it's basically a way to like take your bone marrow. You take your bone marrow out of your body and inject it into your blood. And that fully healed his tooth. So it's interesting how by like not measuring and judging his pain at the time, he was kind of led to his own solution through his own like kind of his own means, through himself, which is kind of, I think that's a very interesting, for me, it's interesting. And I think a lot of healing technologies that like stem from quantum physics are really all about finding that potential energy that is within you, but you're not letting it through because you're constantly trying to judge and measure everything in your reality. And by doing so, you're not giving any space for something greater to kind of to take over.
So it's kind of like we need to get out of our own way.
Right. Exactly.
Our constant striving is actually holding us back. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think that's the case. I think that the concept, and this is definitely not something we embrace in America, but like doing less is more many times. At least in my life, I've noticed that. Like things tend to come to me in ways that I could have never imagined by me not trying as much and allowing more, So I think it's interesting. I don't know. It's interesting. I just find it fascinating that science can control that. But I'm sure there are specific, like, definite, like, oh, this is what like observation means in the scientific world, But
no, that's an interesting parallel.
It's like the GPU of the CPU.
Indeed.
Indeed.
I mean, I think like you can kind of go through stuff and like nitpick every little detail, or you can just kind of like take what's useful, take what inspires you, and kind of live off of that. So you could look at it either way.
Definitely. Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And again, it's like measuring things helps us in different ways. It helps us to, be more grounded, which is a necessity at times. It's just like living, we need to be grounded at times. But at the same time, it's that groundedness that can keep us really close to the ground and not at all, like it can keep us, it can burden us, just like being off the ground can burden you, like being too far in the, in woo-woo world is not a good thing. Just as much as being like stuck on the ground is not a good thing,
Yep.
So that
delicate balance.
It is a delicate balance. Yeah. So, yeah, it is an interesting thing. But
I don't know. Would you rather be off in woo-woo land, or would you rather be completely scientific?
Grounded. If I had to choose one, I think I'd be off in woo-woo land. That sounds way more fun, does it? Like
next week, I find out you've like converted your apartment into like a crystal like healing shop, and like
why not
Himalayan rock salts and all this Himalayan bees.
That's really not like Himalayan rock salt. I mean, like that's like.
I didn't mean to step on anybody's toes.
Now you're just offending the whole world. I just gotta go through. I'm like, those are like grounded earthly things. Come on. No, I get what you're saying. Actually, I think more of like I think a better example would be just like taking hallucinogenics like all the time. That would be just like a good way to just like completely detach and being in this world of like complete potential where there's no judging anything. It's just constant movement, and you just think of living in a kaleidoscope. Like, it would probably at one point it would probably be like this is kind of like purgatory because there's no like satisfaction of continuity whatsoever, and just that fact alone might cause someone to go insane. I don't know if that's the case or not, but like maybe it is, you know. Similar ways like being locked in a prison cell and not being, you know, in like a 24-hour like what do they call those where you're locked and like there's no like windows or anything. It's like you're not able to,
like a padded room type of thing.
something like that. Yeah, it's like the opposite of that. Pretty much the same thing.
Like solitary confinement.
That's it. Yeah, exactly. Solitary confinement. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. But what would you, Duncan? Extremely grounded. Okay, are you in a kaleidoscope or are you in the box? It's I don't know.
I mean, good. I feel like like there's like it's kind of like cyclical, or at least there's like a progression of you know times where I'm more like completely interested in like what can be known, improved, and you know mathematically explained. And then, but then there's always like this transcendental like urge of like this feeling of like there's got to be something that's like can't be explained. So like I see myself like, you know, kind of like on the precipice or on the cliff or whatever, you know, trying to be grounded, but always like looking and poking at the unknown and like, oh, that looks cool. Is there something to that, or is there not something to that?
Right. If you had to like choose one, like if you had to basically cut off the source of one and only live in the other, where like you're completely unaware of one or the other, like you're either like completely engaged in one and never the other, what would you choose?
I mean, I feel like that would be the difference between like a really like depressed atheist or like just like a schizophrenic like
yeah, I think that's the best way to describe
hippie.
it. All right, schizophrenia or depression?
They both got their pros and cons, man. I can't.
I know, they do. You can't. It's hard to choose. You're just gonna remain choiceless, just like a quantum system. Okay, we can do that.
Hopefully. Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Well, enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah,
today.
man.
You brought up some interesting topics.
Yeah, a lot of things to be grateful for, except maybe not the cryotherapy or the ISIS warriors, but the honeybees are kind of nice. Bees are awesome. I'm thankful for them. And what other things? Oh, I'm trying to think. What other things did we mention? Oh, dogs.
You're thankful for bees until they like build a nest outside your door like they did at my house.
Oh, really?
Not bees, actually hornets. They're like
right
wasps.
in front of the door. Oh yeah, those are the worst.
Right behind the screen door.
Oh yeah, so they can get you. Yeah, but without them, we wouldn't be able to survive, which is just pretty crazy.
It's true. I don't think we need mosquitoes though. I don't think mosquitoes really do anything for anybody.
I'm curious if I wonder. There must be some like reason why they're around. You know, I don't know.
They're there to give Charlie Sheen infectious diseases.
I think they must be there for like population control or something like that.
Probably.
Something like that.
All right. Well, let's end this before I say something really offensive.
Perfect. Well, I was just getting at. I don't know if I'll see you for Thanksgiving, but happy Thanksgiving, man.
Happy Thanksgiving. Are you going out of town?
No, I'm gonna be in town. Are you gonna be in town?
I'll be in town.
Great. We should definitely have a Thanksgiving together or hang out.
I think Marissa was trying to host one.
Yeah, I think so. We're gonna have a party in Austin. So if any of you viewers are in Austin, and you're looking for food, I think there's gonna be a lot of food and stuff.
You're gonna get homeless people showing up there.
Yeah, because homeless people watch our podcast every night. If they
That's
do,
right.
I'm totally cool with that, and they can. That'd be awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, I'll see you when I see you.
Sounds good. So long, everyone.
Good night.